gonna go to it. I don't even know what it's for.
Oh, dude! You just jumped into a fucking crazy meeting.
Or does it have anything to do with this crazy paper I'm reading from Yaler?
Yeah, and the Lumio stuff, man, is insane. Like, I mean, basically, there's like, I feel like we're trying to address the power imbalance, the fact that I have all this money and I'm using it to make things in Giveth happen without people's decisions. Like, telling me whether or not I can do it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, it's going to be a fun one, man.
Okay. So I'm here to overthrow you. That's basically my mission, right?
Yes, this is the mission, and I hope everyone's on board. I just hope we can get the DAP done before it comes over down.
I object.
Sorry.
Huh? I object.
Good.
Good practice.
Let's see, and the notes are going to be pretty important, so I'll put them in the Jitsi. And we are live streaming, by the way.
Of course we are. Your face looks like a digital pixel animation. Connection is bad.
Connection is bad, but that's only the phone. So when my words kiss your ears, I'll be right back. Connection is bad. This is your song. Who else are we waiting for? I assume Wojtek's coming, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else that we should check?
Yeah, I'll look on the doodle poll.
Yeah, I'm sure Chris is coming. He was on Doodle. Hey, Wojtek. Oh, wow. Very similar background together.
I think Sky should be here, and we were hoping for Lansky.
Oh, yeah, man. That'd be great to get Paul here.
Yeah, although it says 6 to 7, not 7 to 6. Parker was going to try and make it too, but he might not be able to.
Okay, well, I guess, are you messaging people yet? Or I'm messaging people.
Now.
Nice. Hey, Chris. Bye, Chris.
Yaler, just finished your paper, busting out the Seneca, huh? It's hardcore. Stoicism. I like it.
You know how we do, yeah. Some from 2,000 years ago that always seems to cut right to the core of any issue.
I'm at a loss here. I'm just talking since people are just showing up, but I don't know if there's a way of like getting a catch up on like this right versus wrong drama. I mean, without like choosing sides, or maybe I should just like kind of hold back on this one and just accept the fact that.
No, I think it's fair to give some overview. Well, like at least from my perspective, what I'd say is that we have been operating under a lot of confusion, you know, in a way, because we're organized, at least from the governance circle goals, we've been organizing around an idea of using the DApp as a tool to actually delegate the authority over funds to certain individuals and certain groups. But then we had the whole like, okay, we're launching a mainnet, now we can really do this misstep, because then mainnet was too expensive, and we decided that we shouldn't do that, right? That we should stay on testnet and then just actually use our DApp in kind of a bastardized way to show transparency of funds, but still kind of like just have funds be delegated by circle based on these specific donation percentages. So every donation that comes in, 48% goes to the DApp, 18% goes to social coding, 17 is communications, 16 to Gov. And then, but to use the DApp in a way it wasn't really designed to be used, the governance campaign had to do a lot of extra work to pull things off. And I didn't have enough donations to really do that on my own. So I kind of was just throwing money at people whenever really necessary. Like when we had problems with getting well, first we had to design the multi-send and all that, and then the milestone triple check to keep quality high on our DApp. And then when that wasn't going through fast enough in a decentralized way, there was some drama, so I quickly had to hire Bowen and Lorelei to push things through. I also, when the price of Ether crashed, I sent people donations, kind of like bonuses, without really telling everyone, and then to like subsidize the fact that Ether crashed. I also did that around Christmas time as Christmas bonuses, without putting that on the DApp. I have been basically throwing money around in what is sometimes called a shadow economy to make things happen that I feel need to happen to get us to the point where we are using our DApp and Giveth is successful. And there's a lot of things that will be involved. But this was, from my perspective, because the DApp actually, I wasn't allocated enough percentages of our donations. And is there feedback? And then I wasn't able to donate directly to anything either. So that overhead and those things, I ended up even doing the shadow economy. I ended up running out of funds in governance that were allocated through the donations, at least from the Ether donations that were directly to the multisig. So now I asked that I could just go into the red and then donate the money on top of it, so that I could, so that while I'm going into the red right now and effectively borrowing money from the rest of the circles to go into the red, because the Ether is there, but it's allocated to these other circles, and I'm -1 Ether right now. So when we actually do migrate to the new DApp, I propose that I donate money to cover my portion in the red, and that I think was the straw that broke the camel's back, where it's like, Griff, you're donating too much money, or you have there is a power imbalance in the team, and we need to discuss it. And there is a crazy Lumio thread where I aired a lot of frustrations, and I think a lot of other people aired some frustrations as well. And so you can check that out. And I think we're going to discuss certain topics here. Yaler is kind of the lead instigator of challenging this, so maybe you can add anything I missed, Yaler.
Yeah, I'm the lead pain in the ass in this process, but I felt like it was important to start talking about.
Yaler, you have a mic issue. This is not your mic working, I think.
My mic's not working.
It's just
really ugly.
maybe some headphones.
He's got some headphones. maybe get rid of the headphones.
My question in between, is Satya not coming? Because he had a lot of feedback too.
Gone.
Oh, much better.
Sorry, I was talking through my wireless speaker, apparently. Anyway, yes, so I'm lead pain in the ass, and I wanted to start to talk about some of these things because as a agent of chaos in Giveth, I cross a lot of circle boundaries and have like similar discussions with different people about where resources are going, how they're coming in, how they're being spent, and like what the direction is for us. And I think like this budget conversation is actually a really important time to start talking about how we're spending money and what the expectations or the goals are for the way that money is spent or resources are allocated. And I think this conversation with Griff is just like one small part of like something that's really core that we need to start to think about, and then we need to have like documented policies for that help us make these decisions in the future. I know that historically we have gone through so many changes and like, I mean, so many things that happened before I was even here. So I'm also playing catch up, trying to hear what happened in the past, why it happened, and how we can not make those mistakes in the future. And so when it was brought up that Griff was going to donate to his own campaign, but do it in a way that I guess it didn't make sense to me at the time. I was like, why don't we talk about it a little more before we just like run and just throw money into the situation? Like, we didn't know why a circle ran out of budgets, and there was a lot of concern from different people on all circles, like how a circle could run out of budget and what that looks like, and if we're using the advice process effectively to see how we're spending money and to be able to discuss that like in a fair and like reasonable way, so that we're not just saying like, okay, well, if a circle runs out of money, all the other circles will pick them up until, you know, we get money in the future. Because there's also discussions about grants that are coming in, how that money will be allocated. And the thing that I really wanted was to see a plan, right? Like I wanted something physical, whether it was a milestone or a budget that was created by, like, let's say a circle lead, to say, hey, here's the accountability for how the money is being spent. And not only did I create a budget and say, this is how the money will be spent, I talked to everyone else who it's going to affect, and I made sure that it makes sense. And I know that's maybe not applicable when it comes to how a circle should spend their budget, because it is a circle's budget. But it is applicable when we're saying that money that's coming now from other circles is going to be covered by the other circles until we have donations that are coming in that are also like, that are not real yet, right? Like we haven't even signed the paperwork to get these donations yet. We don't even know if they're actually going to show up. So if we're thinking about like, how do we spend the money we don't have yet, then we're actually playing a dangerous game, saying, okay, we're going to allocate the funds that we haven't even gotten yet to things that we haven't decided collectively that we actually need. And I just had to throw up a flag and say, hey, we need to look at this a little bit more. And it's been a challenging time, but I think it's a really good time to actually just have an honest conversation and say, hey, let's slow down, let's take a look, and let's see if there's a better way of doing this. And I think that's the culmination of what this conversation is. Like, I really want to hear feedback from people, and I really want to like use the advice process that we're starting to put together to say like, what makes sense to us? Does this make sense? Are we doing this in a way that is going to get us where we want to go? And I think what Griff has just started with the Transparency Meeting notes are a great resource, a great starting point for the conversation. We definitely hop on the notes and take a look, because I'd love to talk to all these points. I'd love actually to hear everyone's opinion on these points and see how much consensus we have around a lot of these things. Maybe we don't have time for all of that now, but there's some.
I think that we will have time, and I really want to avoid the discussion at hand, which is how do we deal with governance negative, and focus on more of the background so we can build to a place where we can make a fair decision on this. So let's start with a check-in, if that's cool. Hey, I'm pretty excited to get this thing on the road. How about Chris?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say I'm pretty excited, but I'm interested to hear everyone's feelings and opinions and thoughts, and hope we can do this in a constructive way. Lorelai.
Hey. I'm excited for this meeting. I feel like a lot of the issues that have been catching fire lately really come down to like principle and values of what's going on. So I'm excited that this more amorphous like value discussion is coming out of that. I think it'll be really helpful. And yeah, like Griff said, I'm excited to talk about the foundation of this and not so much the problem at hand that was the manifestation of that. Lindsay?
Yeah. Hey guys. As said, let's hope this is productive and we really use the tools that we discussed today and don't just chat about it. I think it's important and could really help us move forward. So on to Kai.
Hey guys, sorry for being late. Making pizza again. It's in the oven. I don't know. I'm semi-excited about this. Like Lorelai said, she would like to get to the fundamentals. I would have loved to have this talking Cardona, but didn't happen. So we have to do it over video chat, which is not like semi-optimal. I'm excited that Oz is here, and I will give it to him.
Thanks, Kai. That's sweet. I'm just hoping to kind of like catch up and be at all useful. But I love that. Yeah, we're in a position to have this conversation. Good to see your faces. I'm going to switch it to Wojtek.
Hi, I'm very excited about this meeting because transparency and accountability are our core values. So this looks like a step in the right direction. Dean.
Yeah, I'm just here to observe and also a bit excited about the meeting. I would give it to Yela.
I'm happy this meeting is happening, and I think it's a great step in the right direction for all of us. Like Wojtek said, transparency and accountability are really core, and I think we need to define what that means to us collectively. Let's see, anyone else? No, looks like everyone went.
Sorry, I have to play the mute game with Lorelai. So the logistics of this meeting are a little bit different than other meetings. So there's no proposals. This is what I'm throwing out there. There's no proposals. There's no tensions. Actually, maybe there's only tensions. And there's basically a governance-like reaction round. I don't think we necessarily need clarifying questions, but if you really have a clarifying question, no, I'm not even going to open it up. Fuck it. No clarifying questions, just reaction round. And there are, like 9 of us? So if we want to get this meeting done in an hour, which would be ideal, we should try to keep it short. Okay, I'm going to try really hard. But obviously, I always talk a lot. So, so I'm just going to throw things out, and then we'll do the normal call on people style. And then we'll just go to the next point and more like airing out, understanding, giving people a place to speak. But we're not trying to solve any problems today. We're not trying to actually come out with a solution. We're just trying to understand everyone's perspectives. Okay, so there's 5 topics I have that I would like to at least discuss. General goals of Giveth and goals of the DApp sharing round. I think that's like important. Transparency around the fund that Giveth actually has. In transparency debate. Where do we draw the line? What needs to be transparent and what doesn't? Transparency around funds used for Giveth goals, specifically by me, but at least that's what I'm going to share a lot about. But maybe you guys have money that you spend as well. Like, and I'll give some examples of that, I guess. And dealing, and then the key one that I hope we get to once we have this is just kind of brainstorming ideas to deal with economic power imbalance. Okay. So first, goals of Giveth and goals of the DApp sharing round. So in my opinion, the goal of the DApp is to enable people to create and support and contribute to decentralized blockchain-based nonprofit organizations. And especially by being able to give donors a complete understanding of exactly what their donations are spent on. Transparency and accountability, you know? So for me, that's the DApp. The DApp is building nonprofit, decentralized, blockchain-based organizations. The goal of Giveth is to support projects that use blockchain to make the world a better place, that need support in an altruistic manner. Obviously, if you can do an ICO, you know, that's not where Giveth comes in to support you. And our goal, a secondary goal, is to be the first DAC on the Giveth DApp and to model how to be a DAC on the Giveth DApp. Okay, so that's the DApp and Giveth. How about Lorelei?
Actually, I'm just thinking about process right now, and I'm wondering, really, Griff, if you're the right person to be facilitating this, because you obviously have a lot of feelings about this, and this is kind of is about your power imbalance. I would be willing to facilitate if someone else is willing to step up and take notes, if you guys support that.
I support that. I'd be willing to help with the notes. Yeah, I support that. I'll be willing to take notes.
I can take notes too if you want, Yela, either way.
Okay, cool. Well, I put the HackMD note link into the side here. And it's a little amorphous than when we're doing just a regular Gov meeting. But yeah, I'm happy to facilitate, and that way everyone who has passionate feelings about this can be more on even playing ground. Okay. I wasn't really focused on responding to that particular goals of the DApp thing, so I'm just going to pass it to Oz.
All right, so is it like, what do I think the goals for the DApp are versus the goals for Giveth, or if they mix? I don't want to take up any time, so just for me, I thought the goals of Giveth was to bring this new donation experience to the world. And sorry, that's a little soft, but yeah, that's basically kind of like the umbrella of which I kind of see all this stuff moving towards. So I will pass it to Yaler.
All right, just getting off the notes. So to touch on this, you know, honestly, I can't tell you what my opinion is for the goal of the DApp, because I have been here more to support and to listen to see what everyone else thinks it is. So I don't actually have a strong opinion about what the goal of the DApp is. In this process, I've been more interested in hearing what the community thinks the goal of the DApp is. And that's kind of how we got to this place. There's so many divided opinions about what it is. I think one more is actually not a valuable thing. So that's kind of my long explanation. The goal of Giveth, I pretty much agree with what Griff said, to support projects that want to make the world a better place. We have this blockchain for good motto, and I think that's great. But I think what that needs to be more clearly defined. What is blockchain for good? What falls into that category? What do we support and don't we support? And what are the actual actions that we can take to make blockchain for good a reality? That's what I want to see come out of this. That is all. I will choose Lindsay.
All right, just trying to take notes. Yeah, I mean, I think this discussion is more about the process and less about people's opinions. We've gone over this. We've written manifestos. We've asked the community. So I think it's pretty clear what the point of the DApp is, and everyone has their own individual reasons for wanting to support this and help it grow and create it. But I think for me, the process is really where we need to focus to really stick together and make sure that we come out behind the DApp and that we're still in agreement of why we came here and just, you know, behind the technology. Let's get this out there. Let's let the communities decide what they're going to build with it. And so in order to build the proper DApp, we all really need to be a team, and it seems like we're on and off in that area. So on to Wojtek.
I agree. Thank you. I agree a little bit.
I think that the goal.
Yourself. Thank you. I think that the goal of the DApp is to return the transparency, accountability, and trust to charitable giving and allow people to raise funds, no matter where you are and whether you're on blockchain. That's like the ultimate goal. And the goal of the Giveth is to support open source and non-for-profit organizations that are trying to do good in the world. I think that's clear, probably even for everyone. Kai?
Yeah, we have defined how we see those two over time. So, I mean, I can give it another go. I'm not disagreeing with anybody that came before me. It's mostly semantics, I guess. So the goal of the donation application, or the DApp, or the decentralized donation application, or however you want to call it, the thing we have on multiple domains now, for me, is for everybody to be able to raise money for their cause, and for anybody else to give money to causes they want to see solved in the world. So that's, for me, what the DApp should do. Giveth itself as a community does lots around this. Like, I think the whole thing started as purely helping the DApp team and the DApp, and like providing those things we would see in the future, like with other circles, like marketing, for example, and support, or other things like I mean, that's also in operations. It's also mixing up with the governance. I think that events are in the same thing. So the goal of Giveth still is the facilitation of the DApp, but there has been other things that have been coming as well, and I think they might have already been there. They were for sure in Griff's mind, which is open source development in general, for whatever helps people, helps us foremost, like the members of this, like in their whatever we see needed for the Ethereum space, we try to make happen. This also comes into the security thing, which is not so much right now, but which was very strong like a few months ago, which is auditing and all that stuff. So Giveth is just really a bit undefinable, and I think it's okay because it's a multifaceted community, and I think that's the main thing why we have this distinction between those two. And I give it to Griff. Are you allowed to see? Oh, Chris has not done, I think.
What? Me?
Go for it, Keith.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I pretty much agree with what everyone else said. And yeah, I don't have any strong opinions other than that. So I give it to, yeah, I don't know. Chris?
Is that everyone?
We need
No,
Chris.
yeah. Yep. So, oh, bit of an echo. Yeah, so I also haven't heard anything I disagree with at all. So what Giveth is, no, what the Giveth DApp is all about is, so I was writing on a mission statement that I shared with the unicorns and the unicorn team, and I shared in communications. Griff gave some feedback on it. And from the core team, he was the only one. I think Wojtek did read it, but he still had to add his feedback, but he mostly agreed too, he told me. So I'll share it again here in the notes. I'll actually do that right now. And to me, that gives a definition that is then kind of crowdsourced if more people give their feedback on this. And so for the DApp, I think it makes sense. So here it says, for the moment, we're building a DApp, a completely free open source platform for DACs, a disrupting force that can decentralize and facilitate altruism. The goal of Giveth is literally the sentence that Griff said here, because he adapted that one, and I agree with it. So we're focused on using blockchain technology to make the world a better place. I don't think we need to define that so much better. I think we all agree what blockchain for good is. It's just like your own moral standards that we're all, I haven't seen a lot of disagreement in there. But what I do think that is important just in mentioning there, and that's what I try to do in these 3 points, is that, and which I tried to also talk about with Satya, with Wojtek, with Yaler a lot, is that everything that the Giveth DAC does, so that means social coding, governance, both internally as externally, and the communication team as well, is doing things that are actually all centered around the DApp. Because we're working on altruism, we're working on decentralization, and we're working on community. We're doing it, and we're experimenting with it. So everything we do in social coding can be reused in the DApp. Everything we do in governance and in communication, all of this can be reused in the DApp. So it's all very much connected. So as Griff once told me in Cancun a long time ago as well, is that that governance is so big. We're working on decentralized governance. It's, again, I haven't explained it that well when we were in Cordona, but the decentralized governance element is huge and is way bigger than just the DApp. And again, that isn't meant in any pejorative way, because the DApp is front and center. This is the blockchain-based initiative that we're working on now, and that is going to make all of this possible. So it's the most crucial thing. So there is never any doubt about that. But the rest of it plays into it, and it's going to make the DApp stronger. So to me, the other elements are just as important. And I see that between the DApp team and the rest of Giveth, there's a bit of an imbalance in the feelings about that. And yeah, for the rest, I think it's in the document. And I see Wojtek and Giller smiling a lot. I'm wondering why again. And that's it. I think. Did anyone else have to go?
I think Lorelai still needs to go. I'm just a happy guy.
Hey. Yes. I've been thinking a lot about, like Lindsay was saying, we do know what the goals of Giveth are and the goals of the DApp, like on paper. We're all agreed about that. But how we're practically using it, and is our bigger goal to provide it to the public, or is our bigger goal to provide something working to ourselves? I think there's a bit of a tension there. I think it gets to this like core value of Giveth, this humanism thing, right? Like humanism is saying that we are responsible for fixing ourselves first, and really like we're the only ones that we can save. Like I only have myself. I can't try and save something outside of me if I'm not fixing that same thing internally. And it's a word that I hear thrown around Giveth a lot and is all up on our wiki and whatnot. And I think that's why sometimes there's this tension between like getting the dApp ready for other users versus like really focusing on ourselves. So yeah, I'm not really clear on that, but I guess that's my reaction, is just that to me, I see this confusion around the day-to-day goals of the dApp because there's both of those audiences for it. Yeah, that's all I really want to say. I don't think anyone else was needing to go unless someone had more to say on this round. But the next agenda item is to talk about the transparency around the funds that we do have right now. So unless someone speaks up in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, I'm going to hand it to Griff. He wants to share just the transparency of our status currently. And you can see that on the meeting notes. There's a nice little table.
Okay. Nice. Okay. Yours is muted. Sorry. That handoff on the same room stuff is always fun. Okay, so transparency around funds Giveth has. While this has been put in a lot of places, it's probably not been aired well enough, but this is a great place to reconfirm where the status of funds Giveth has now. Right now there is, in our multi-sig, there's 200 and something Ether. It's broken down, 65 Ether is for migration campaign, so that's money we've already spent that needs to be kicked out. Giveth is negative, or the governance campaign has a -1 allocated to it. The dApp development team has 81 Ether dedicated to it. Social coding has 44, and Giveth communications has 23. That is the clear stuff that's been allocated according to the 48, 18, 17, 16 plan. That only adds to 99. There's like decimals after that. But then there are other funds that have been solicited and we are in the control of technically, right? But they're in various different places. The biggest one is 300 Ether that was solicited from Burns Inc. This was when Ether was like $70, and it was really Jordy and I did a bunch of work with Adria and a few other people that before most people were in Giveth, and we were supposed to be paid, but then they didn't really pay us, and there was some confusion there. And so I brokered a deal that they would put 300 Ether into a donation doubler that Wojtek wrote, actually, and that would be pegged for audits and security things around what became our liquid pledging and our designs. So I actually think we can use this to, once we have the dApp, we can use this to actually send money back over to the people who have spent money on security. So I think we can probably donate some of this to the dApp campaign for paying for some of RJ's work, a lot of RJ's work. I think Bowen can be matched, and probably some other cool security features that we want to allocate. But I kind of see this 300 Ether turning in, first off, I see myself as the steward of this 300 Ether, and I see it being put into a campaign specifically for matching security funds, right? And then it would donate to different milestones that have matched security funds, or donate to different campaigns that have already expended those funds. But I can't do that until the dApp is working in a transparent way. Then there's 125 Ether, which I solicited from the maker audit. It's slotted for delegation by me as a DC delegate when we have the working. That was the agreement when I solicited the money. I didn't think we would have to wait until July for that to happen. Same with the 12 Ether that we got from the Oregon audit. I didn't solicit as much funds from them because I felt that it was a more Giveth thing, because we definitely plan on using Oregon for a lot of things, and it's very influential. And then we also actually in our multi-sig have $17,000 worth of tokens, and from my opinion, I think it's important that we appreciate people's love of their token and try to donate those tokens directly to milestones as opposed to trying to cash them out. However, that could be a group decision. And then the biggest asset we have, honestly, is the fact that I'm willing to throw money down for whatever needs to get done, whenever it needs to get done, if we ever run out of funds. And I kind of see that as a really lucky asset, and I hope that we don't have to utilize it, but I also don't want to just throw down 1,000 Ether into our multi-sig, because I feel like that might dissuade other people from helping me out, because honestly, I don't want to have to pay for everything. And yeah, so those are the funds we have around. And at least my concept was that everyone could react to that, or maybe add funds that we have that I'm missing. I'll call on Wojtek.
Yeah, I don't think we have any funds that is missing there. I'm just happy that it's maybe finally clear what is where, and I would like to maintain that state. Kai.
Yeah, let me see what's coming up on the agenda, but I think I can say this now. So two things, like I will agree with Wojtek, it would have been nice to see this. I mean, like I asked sometimes and I got the answer like there is some, and which was enough for me, because I know this is like a different sphere, so I assumed enough is enough. Ether is like some people mentioned, like at a midpoint right now, so we should consider that this is cryptocurrency, not fiat. As a second point, I want to go to the first thing, like you see a little table there. It's the 65 Ether migration campaign, governance, debt, coding, social coding, and communication circle. So for me, this is where the real like mess here lies. It's because for me, it's not how have people been crazy with funds or whatever. I think the transparency was given around the funds that are spent, and if we had altered the scheme of how we allocate those earlier, we would not have this discussion now. And the two things that are striking for me here is that social coding has 44 Ether, which also like speaks to the fact that social coding has no clear budgeting lead. So I think lots of what governance was doing was actually benefiting social coding or like in their agenda. So there should have been some flows here. And also the debt development probably shows that in our original key, we allocated too much funds out of all to debt. And yeah, that's from my side. That's it from my side. I give it to Dean.
Yeah, so I also agree with you about the social coding. It seems like we haven't used it for anything yet. So that's my input on it. And I will give it to us.
Hi. I don't have anything to add. I guess, yeah, it's nice to see the full picture. And are we expecting that people have like particular tensions about this? Am I hearing that there's a tension that social coding doesn't spend enough money, or that someone else has too much money, or are we just catching up on where stuff is financially? And I will pass it to Lindsay. Did you go? I didn't hear you.
No, I haven't gone yet. Yeah, I think what was also discussed in one of the tabs or papers that were going around this morning was that I was doing a lead discussion as part of the governance meeting once a month or something. And I think that is a big part of this puzzle that isn't happening right now, that there should be very general and open budget talks, not a full budget, overview where everything is going, but who's running these, who's spending money, what circle should be supporting events or certain people or whatever decision. So I think that step being added would help. But just now, I guess a lot of people here didn't even know where, how the funds were being allocated. So this seems important and hopefully helpful. So we'll see what we make of it. Anyone else need to go? Chris?
Yeah. I think it's a really good point that we that Griff made the overview of the available funds. I think that is one of the frustrations that I've heard a lot. Griff mentioned in the beginning also the shadow economy, and that's the thing that frustrated as well. So it's good to bring some clarity here about all of this. I think this can help a lot. So the thing that I thought was missing was the AdCon prize money. So I added it at the bottom to maybe add it there because I don't know exactly again the exact amount. Was it in there? Okay.
It was the 48 way.
Okay, cool. So I had talks about this more than once also with Wojtek about having transparency about the funds, etc. And the thing is that I think both Kai and I did the same thing. It was like when we had those questions, we asked Griff, and Griff told us. So there's not that there was anything dishonest about it, but the fact that if it's not available, then people can have the idea that there is abuse, which so if we want transparency, it's good to have it out there. So it's good that this is finally written down. And who else has to go? Yeller, did you already go?
I did not. So for me, this is all like new information. I had no idea these things were even there. I was like looking at a budget of what was in the multi-sig and assuming that like in 3 months at our current expense rate, we would be out of money. So hooray, it's like a great and interesting thing. And I know that as more and more people come on, this will probably be the case for them as well. Like these things are understood by certain people, but they're not written down anywhere. They're just like back of the napkin agreements. And I think it's really important to get this stuff like documented and to have it readily available for people when they're thinking about what's the future of Giveth and how long are we going to last and how much money can we actually spend on things. I think it's really, really important to have clarity around that. And I'd also like to mention that if we're really looking at those figures, I know that a lot of people are behind on milestones or haven't even claimed on milestones for months. So perhaps those figures are not even representative of what's actually in those circles. So that's something to keep taking into account. Like, do we want to store milestones for people for a year or 3 years? Is that something that's going to be helpful for us, for our accounting perspective? Or should we think about creating some type of policy? It's like, if you don't claim a milestone by X date, then it's basically expired, like reward down. Another conversation. But I keep coming back to the advice process. I feel like this agreement is maybe very loose between some of the circle leads, and they feel good about how the money is being spent. Obviously, like Griff brought the money in, so he's stewarding it. But like, if this is considered Giveth money, then it needs to be. We need to use the advice process to say like, how should the money be spent? What's the plan for it? and really provide something where everyone can rally behind it and say, yes, we had a conversation about this. It was understood. It makes sense, and we feel good about it. Instead of saying like, well, someone has control of Giveth money, and we don't really know exactly how it's going to be spent. And maybe that was just from my lack of understanding, but that's how it seemed to me. There's money in wallets in places where it's not in a multi-sig. It's not in like the control of the community. It's in control of like being controlled by one person, which is a reason for uncertainty. I think having a rough roadmap for how funds are spent will give people a lot of security. It'll make them feel good about what we're doing and why we're spending funds. So there needs to be the collective understanding of how money is being spent. So it's great that we have these extra funds, and let's continue to provide an updated like transparency about the funds are available, and continue to have a conversation about how funds will be spent once they come in. Anyone else?
I do.
Well, I just arrived. I tried to get into the conversation, but sorry, I have no opinion for now. So I don't know the next one.
No, you're the last one. You're good.
Okay, fine. Sorry, I cannot make some today.
I think I might be the last one, actually. Yeah, so I love having this transparently out there. The one thing that felt a little odd to me in this round is like all of these points are very like factual, nuts and bolts, except for when we come down to Griff as a safety net. And Griff said that he's here to like fund anything that needs to happen when it needs to happen. And that's great. And I think we are very lucky to have this angel donor scenario, but that feels very unclear to me. And I don't know what that process looks like. I mean, who decides what needs to happen and when it needs to happen? Obviously Griff is in control of his own funds, but that gives this certain power, especially saying like, I'll be here to solve problems. But yeah, who decides? What's the process for deciding when the angel donor needs to come in? Or what if something needs to happen that Griff doesn't want to fund? Yeah, I'm just curious about that. Yale, were you raising your hand to speak?
Yeah, if it's okay, I that's a great point that I also really would love clarity on, because I think it's a double edged sword in the sense that Griff is our angel donor, right? Or the governance angel donor. Amazing. But Griff is also the leader of the governance circle. So it's like, how do we, if Griff's making the decisions about what the money is being spent in his campaign is, and he's also the one funding it all, how do we, like, where is the accountability in that sense? If like, for example, the campaign ran out of funds and we're saying, well, you were the one that, were stewarded with the funds, but you're also the one that can put funds into the campaign. It becomes like a really slippery slope for anyone else to understand, like, how, like, seeking advice and saying, okay, this is the best way to spend funds, because in essence, there is no check of power. It's like, I can fund anything I want to, and when I'm out of funds in my campaign, I'll just put more funds in there. And I think when the DApp's working, I know this is our eternal struggle, that's what every donor can do. Well, not every donor can do that, because probably most of our circle leads won't be like huge donors to their own campaigns. But we need to create a policy so that we can avoid collusion in that sense, and there is accountability with everyone else, so that decisions that are made are kind of approved by everyone else before it goes into a place of saying, like, oh, we have two people working together and they're just going to push through whatever decisions they want to without consulting the community. So yeah, I think that was really, really important point, probably the most important point, just to get clarity around. And Griff wants to speak.
Yeah. Thank you. No, actually, you're gonna mute your mic. Okay, cool. But you can keep the speaker on, I think. Okay, we'll see. Nope, I guess not. Okay, so I definitely don't see a reason why the community needs to be involved with how someone spends their money. There is a community, the advice process makes a lot of sense when there's a shared resource that's being utilized. And when someone has some money and they want to put it into a Giveth campaign, what's really cool is that they can see exactly where those funds are going, and other people can even help them if they agree with their campaign. If they don't agree with their campaign and they're running it alone, well, they use the DApp or they don't. Either way, they do what they want with their money. And I mean, this goes to some later points that we get to talk about, 4 and 5, where we mitigate this. But I think that's definitely the clearest point of conflict, potentially, is that there's this weird fuzzy line between what is my money and what is Giveth's money. And if I want to pay someone to do something with my money, well, then what a benefit that it actually helps Giveth as well, right? And if I want to create a campaign to help, transgendered people in Seattle and no one else wants to contribute to it, okay, who cares? I want to create a campaign and I want to bring visibility to that campaign, so I'm going to use the DApp to do that. And if people want to help, they can. And if people don't want to help, they don't have to. But that doesn't mean I shouldn't be able to use open source, decentralized software to do awesome things for the world. Yeah, and so, but we'll talk more about this as we go forward. But I think that it's kind of crazy that the community, i.e. anyone who feels entitled to my money, can tell me how to spend it. So I want to say, I'm getting like really enraged right now, and I'm just going to smile and hold it back. But Wojtek would like to speak.
Yeah, I don't think that that's what anyone is saying, Griff. What we are saying about is to bring transparency and accountability to how the money is spent, and not to depend on one centralized party, right? I'm sorry to say that, but if something does happen to you, well, I'm not sure if your relatives will give us this money, right? I'm not sure if we can continue like this. So let's try to find a little bit of a risk-free ground and transparent ground where we try to decentralize this and we try to make it very transparent. But of course, we're very appreciative of the money that you gave. We're also very appreciative to many other people that gave us money, and many other people that gave us their time with no money that is required or anything like that. And it is true, you are the angel donor, but let's try be pragmatic about it, and let's try imagine what Giveth would be like without Griff, maybe, and if we can survive that. And I'll have to go, so I'll just say goodbye, guys. And I'll give it back to Lorelei.
Thanks, Wojtek. So we just got into point 3, really. I see Yaler wanting to speak again. And I'm just thinking that for efficiency, if there's more thoughts to be shared on this, like Griff just said his piece that he wrote out in the notes on point 3, and maybe people want to do a quick reaction round specifically to that, and then we can move towards really what to do. So, Yaler, do you want to start that quick reaction round?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to say that I am not in any way saying how, trying to implement how we should tell donors, especially at Griff, how to spend their personal money. That's not what I'm like saying at all. I do think you should be able to do that, supporting any campaign you want, supporting any movement you want through the DApp, and I am a big supporter of that. I just think that the confusion that's coming from having two positions, being an angel donor and being a leader of a campaign, is something that actually is creating a lot of tension between like everyone on the team and a lot of confusion. And it's also like an example. How does each circle deal with these things, and how can we create a solution for everyone that will work by creating policies or things that help people to manage funds, by getting the community involved and by having a conversation about that and saying, how do we see this going? You know, and what's the best way to spend our resources? Not for private donors. I don't think we ever need to tell private donors what to do, but I do think we need to be accountable to each other, how the funds are spent as circle leads, not as private donors. That's all I wanted to say. Do we want to do a reaction round? Is that what you're asking, Lorelai? Okay, well, I choose Oz because he wants to speak.
Hi. So as a person that's, coming from the outside, this conversation has been a little bit confusing because it's been like, or it seems like mostly people have just kind of agreed. The disagreement that I guess I'm sensing is that it sounds like we were running out of money, or it looked like we were running out of money, and that created some tensions because it was like, okay, are we, I mean, the truth is we are running out of money. Maybe there's some tensions that things could have gone this way or that way if we are dealing with this finite supply. And then maybe Griff is kind of in a position of power since kind of like, or in a position, it's a little bit decentral because it's like, if I'm looking at a pot of money, I'm like, oh my God, the money's running out and I don't have much say of where it goes. Griff's looking at the same situation, but to him, he's like, oh, maybe I'll just add some here or add some there or see if I can pull some financial loop-de-loops with my, position or social history or whatever. And so now it seems like Griff's tried to get it all out in the open. Does that mean that we're back to agreeing again, or is there actually something? Because I guess the other part I don't really understand. I guess that was my attempt at trying to explain why having Griff be an angel donor and a lead could be a problem in the first place. It's like all the leads are in the same situation with their budgets, but then Griff kind of has like this extra power because he kind of like can mess up the books. I don't know, maybe if someone could just explain to me like what the disagreement is exactly, because I understand there's obviously always two sides to different tales. Thanks if someone could do that. Sorry if this isn't helpful. I will pass it on to Chris. It looks like he has things to say. If it's okay for me to pass it on. Sure.
How do you see on my face that I have things to say, Oz? It's also to help you with that point. It's a very confusing thing to me as well. The fact that Griff is a donor and at the same time that he is a circle lead, I do not see any conflict or problems there at all. It's like Griff said as well. Yeah, he can be the single delegate and like give the money, and if nobody else does and it's for a nonprofit, why not? So I don't see there any issue whatsoever. It's all in the milestones. It's all clear. So the thing that money was given on the side because ETH went down, I can understand that created some frustration, and it did, because I have no idea how much money other people got. I don't know if it made sense, if they deserved it. And so that, of course, but that's the thing that's going to go away when we have the Giveth app up and running. So that's also what Griff said. So I think that problem is going to clear itself out. The fact that we are running out of money, okay, as Wojtek said, maybe Griff dies one day. What happens then? Well, the thing is, Griff is also the person who initiated starting to apply for grants. Griff is also the person who started talking to Aragon. Griff is also the person who started talking to everyone to get extra funds and to have steady income for Giveth. So that's again like big kudos and eternal gratitude to Griff for all of this. So there's only positive things there. The thing that started all of this, that there was an issue that there was not enough money. Well, as I reacted in the Lumio as well, the issue doesn't really exist because we just got promised $2 million by Aragon, and maybe this is not written in stone right now. But if people who we trust and who we have 100% shared values with, and they want to invest in Giveth because they believe in everything that we do, why are we making such a big fuss about this? I really don't see any issue whatsoever. So there are enough funds. Even without Griff making this overview, we know that there are enough funds. Another point about this that I find important to me, because there were so many things said in the Lumio that enraged me enormously by one specific person who is not here, which I find truly sad. But it's like, how can you not have? Yeah, how are you attacking the person who's providing all the funds? I really don't get that. And it's accusing this person of being dishonest. This is really something I do not get. But I'm losing my point here. But this is the thing that have seen all the time in discussion, that there is like this bias and this power play that is happening that I just do not see. We want transparency and accountability. That's for this we have the milestones. So it's there. So I don't see any issue whatsoever. I'm going to stop because I lose my point and I'm getting emotional. And I give it to Lorelei.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to respond, Oz, to you as well. The actual proposal for Griff to lend, to donate to back up a loan from the other circles to be able to pay out governance salaries and whatnot for the next few weeks until the DAP is running. That was approved. So there's not really disagreement there on the interim plan. We know what we're doing. It was agreed to by the team. And this discussion isn't necessarily so much of a big disagreement between people, so much as like it just brought up a lot of feelings from everybody and wanting to have a wider conversation about it. So not necessarily a huge like worrying disagreement, but conversation. And I'm gonna pass it to Lindsay.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I think that this is only a conversation about the actual funds if there's a date which the funds have to be paid back if it was a loan. For Griff to donate to Giveth, I don't even think we should have a discussion about it. He can tell people that he wants to know, but otherwise I don't even think this needs to be discussed. But obviously there's some deeper frustrations here, and I go back to, I think we do need to try having a regular circle roles meeting. So if anybody has any questions, frustrations, or tensions about a specific role, things that aren't being done that they feel should be done, any of these details should be discussed then, because it is an ongoing conversation. It's not static. So that's my constructive feedback, and I'll give it to Kai.
Thanks, Lindsay. So I'm sad that Wojtek left, because I think that this really goes deeply into like the relationship between that circle and the other circles. So I think we're losing that now. I'm not gonna talk too long because I really have to get off and eat something. Sorry, guys. I will hop back on later. I just want to say for this one thing that for Griff, it's just maybe people here are really about wordings of certain things, and stuff got emotional and out of hand. And I think like one guy like protected something, and the other guy fought for something. Whatever. It's just, I think it is interesting and should be explored. It should be explored on the real issues. And if we are on the real issues, if the real issue is transparency, I have to say that I would love the debt to get better, because there are milestones and they are there, and they're not persistent, however. So that's a thing that could be really made as a point here. I would really love to get more, more technical ways of solving all of our issues. I think I'm with Griff there. And yeah, we will never be able to tell people how they should use their funds. And we should not put it as point number 5. It should not be our safety net, but in fact it is. So it should not be taken into consideration heavily, like, but it should be like, if we have existential fear, or if we question, if we come from total scarcity, we should take that into account if it helps wrapping your head around stuff. So I'm sorry, I have to go. I'll be back very soon. Back to Laura.
Okay, thank you. I know there are other folks who haven't spoken. Okay, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry about that. Yeah, so let's see, I had something over here. Yeah, basically, I didn't feel like I actually had a chance to throw down for this, even though in the last one I did get to say something. But yeah, just to reiterate, I feel like campaign managers are naturally going to be donors, and we need to actually get used to that, because people who want to start a project often will have, and are impassioned about it and want to lead it, will often have funds to put into it. And sometimes they won't, but sometimes they will. And I definitely don't think that there is any kind of conflict there if people want to spend their own money on something. The real thing is entitlement, to me, is the big piece that gets this thing that the advice process has to be ran. Anytime I spend money on funds on things that I think will help Giveth forward, I'm so frustrated by that, because it is my money and I need to be able to do things with it. Like, I hired Lindsay to do Burning Man stuff, but we needed help in Giveth, so like she ends up doing a lot of Giveth stuff. And I want to use the DApp for these things. I want to use the DApp for everything. That's why I'm like excited. I am like Mr. Transparency in my mind, at least. I want to be transparent about things. What I keep running into is that when money becomes involved, everyone turns into like, and it's just like human nature, you just turn into this scared fight or flight kind of thing. And I don't know why that is. And I'm still trying to do the research with Giveth, you know, try to understand this and how to best mitigate it. We've definitely learned some lessons. Ever since the bonuses that I paid out, like, I feel like that did cross the line where I paid everyone extra money, which is funny that throwing money at people is crossing the line. It's just a crazy world, but it is. And because it was very much work related and there wasn't transparency around it. And the big piece that makes it difficult for me is that we don't have a donate button. I can't donate to a milestone, and I can't donate to a campaign. And once that can happen, then why would I use anything else? I want to be able to have Lindsay be paid from a Burning Man campaign for Decentral and from Giveth, right? I want to be able to split that in a fair way that makes sense. I want Lorelei to be able to get money from the governance campaign, even though I'm out of funds, right? I want Bowen to be able to be matched by the 300 Ether that is like slotted for what I think his work is doing, you know? And like, when I got these other funds, I was the steward of them and the donors gave me a specific thing that said, hey, we want it for this. And granted, I helped create that mindset. I was like a participant in okay, yeah, getting 125 Ether from Maker. I'm like, yeah, well, I want that in the dApp when we have a dApp. And I can delegate it to whatever, because 48, 18, 17, 16 is not the right use of every donation that we receive. That was a temporary thing that we put in November, and it's July. No one thought it would last past March 1st. But the last time we had the budget discussions were even harder than this current frame. And that's the big piece that I think Euler and some of the people that are newer, they didn't get to see how frustrating it was to get to this 48, 18, 17, 16 point. And I have been afraid to open it up this whole time. And decisions based out of fear are huge mistakes always. So I shouldn't have been afraid. We should have had more transparency around how that 48, 18, 17, 16 isn't fair, especially when, March came around, April came around, and it was pretty clear we weren't going to have the dApp ready any time too soon. It really should have been discussed. But now that we are here and we actually have the release version of the dApp ready to go, I really feel this, trying to figure out the best way to deal with the fact that we can't donate to the dApp, because I feel like that's the key piece. Trying to have that debate is almost useless, because we will have the dApp pretty soon. And then we will have this. I will be able to do a lot of the things that I want to do to support Giveth in a clear, transparent way, without having to reopen the way donations should be split when they're given to Giveth, whether or not they should be 48, 18, 17, 16, and have to all of a sudden throw that out and say, oh no, we have a new thing. It actually was really nice that we just had that clarity for 5 months and no one had to worry about this until it ran out of usefulness. But yeah, I guess Yealer already spoke. I don't know if I should give it back to him. I know Dean hasn't spoke. I don't know if anyone else needs to. I'll let Lorelei decide.
Dean, do you want to speak?
Yeah, I can. But I agree with.
We can move on to the next thing if not.
Yeah, I would just want to say that I agree with what Nancy said, but that this is an ongoing thing and we can talk about it regularly, and that's it.
Thank you. So I think the next thing to move into really is ideas for dealing with the power imbalance.
You don't want to skip my fourth point?
Well, it seemed like you had talked about that already. No. It seemed like we all, okay, yeah. I'm going to let you introduce this. You just spoke quite a bit about it, but do you want to just introduce how, what people are really reacting to? Because I'm not clear on that.
Yeah, I mean, did you want to say something really quick, man?
I mean, just honestly, briefly, I just wanted to say that I think there's been so much confusion, and this is probably stemming from me in general around this thing in the first place. From my understanding, the request was that whatever funds you were loaning to the governance campaign was going to be paid back by Giveth. I had no idea you were saying that it was going to be that's what I thought. And so when I was saying that, I was saying, well, we should have a conversation about it, right? Each circle should be accountable for how the money is going to be paid back by Giveth, because we were talking about how donations were going to come in. And what you said in the Lumio proposal, I was I had no idea that was what you were actually saying. So for me, seems to be a misunderstanding in the first place. And I don't want anyone to think that I want donors to to question how they want to spend their money. And like, I just think that's a big misunderstanding. And I hope that like, whatever we're having in this conversation, we can come to like an agreement, because it sucks. And I think it's now stupid. It's gotten to the point where it's like, I agree. The DApp is like the solution, right? But like in the meantime, how do we deal with this stuff? And yeah, okay, in 2 weeks it works. Like let's not create some big policy about like how we're going to do this for the next 2 weeks, because it's a total waste of time. And I just wanted to say that I agree with that.
Thank you. Griff, do you want to introduce your next section there?
So bad. Oops. Okay. Let me fill out. Sorry. So the next point is kind of like, where do we draw the line specifically? And now we have all these different things, and I just kind of want to throw it out there, what things that I am paying for and things that I kind of want to put on the DApp, things I don't want to put on the DApp, and hear reactions to that. And then I'm also curious if other people have other costs that they don't feel like they're putting on the DApp because they have similar issues, right? So we've had, let's see, I've had a lot of difficulties being transparent with what I want to do to Giveth, because we have implemented a short-term solution. That solution is the 48, 16, 18 thing. I'm excited about supporting this project and guiding this project because I want to be transparent with all that I do. But right now with the tech, it's not feasible or smart to do because of the overhead and incapability of being able to donate directly to Milestone. Things that we use the DApp for that I wish I could contribute more to be reward DAO, event costs, salaries, bounties, skilling out campaigns, basically everything we do to the DApp, I wish I could, you know, kind of like support in some way, right? Things that I would like to use the DApp for but can't right now because I don't have the funds in the governance campaign that I can't donate directly. Basically things I pay for, Firebase, domain names, and other random fiat world costs. Lindsay and Lorelei, obviously, their salaries, which are a little more complicated than just unicorn basic income. Team meals that I throw down for. You know, it'd be cool if other people bought them sometimes, and then I could just throw them Ether on the DApp or something like that. Other people's expenses, like flying Adam to Barcelona. I wish I could. I wish I could just put that as a milestone, and other people could contribute to it too, and it wasn't just out of my pocket. Money given to people as bonuses, obviously, like sometimes when the price goes down or something like that, I wish I could just throw more money to people in a transparent way. Bounties in general to like support projects like you know, ETHCAN and things of that nature. Office expenses like monitors and furniture. There's going to be a pool back there. There's a bed put up. You know, stuff that adds to the office. I wish that could be an easy milestone that people could just like contribute to, and it wasn't easier for me to just give someone Ether directly for buying it. And then obviously Burning Man. I want Burning Man to be on this, and a lot of other projects that I want on there. Now there's some things that I'm like, well, I don't know if it's right to go on the DApp. Like my flights. Like maybe sometimes my flights are 2 places for Giveth, and hotels are 4 places to Giveth, and it would be fun to put some of them up there, maybe, you know, and sometimes not. I mean, if it's not really Giveth related, like right now I'm in Spokane to play a basketball tournament with my family and see them for their birthday. Probably don't need to pay for this Airbnb, you know. And, you know, sometimes like maybe I'm just crazy, but like I want to give money to my family and friends, and I would actually like to use the DApp process with a reviewer to say, hey, I want to pay off my dad's credit cards. Yeah, all you got to do is send a receipt that says you paid them off, and you'll get the last half of the payment or something like that, you know. So, but obviously, every time I give money to someone, I don't want it on the DApp. And then, of course, my general like expenses or like holdings and things like that. Even though I'm an angel donor to Giveth, I don't want that on the DApp. And I know that sounds obvious after the previous discussions, but honestly, after some of the discussions that I've had on the Lumio, I felt like that needed to be clarified. But yeah. So I don't know if we want to have a reaction round on this, but.
And I think during that reaction round, you can also say if there are things that you're not putting on the DApp that you would, funds, expenses that you would like to use the DApp for. So you can include that with your reaction. And let's see, Wojtek, I see you've returned. Do you want to speak first?
Sure. I mean, I don't really have a reaction to what Griff said because I didn't hear it fully or didn't fully understand. But in general, expenses, I think that the expenses of each circle should be agreed by the circle, what is actually being paid and what is not, right? And then you can decide, then you have a simple decision process. Is this a valid expense or is it not a valid expense? That's what I see when it comes to expenses. And I go to Chris.
Yeah, for me, it would be good if it would make sense if we agree all on what we can expense or not, because yeah, you can decide that per circle, but as, for example, the DApp circle has more funds, it would make sense. They will be more, they will say like, maybe say like, okay, well, you can, we'll pay, you can expense your flight and your train tickets and your phone costs and everything. A circle with less money will not allow that. So then that's this imbalance that is there. So yeah, so I would say like stuff like that. I haven't expensed taxis and stuff. I haven't expensed most of the flights, and often yeah, these flights were more expensive than what I earn. So that's sometimes a bit stressful. So yeah, it would be cool to have like an agreement for the entire Giveth DAC on that. I give it to Oz.
Cool, thanks. All right, thanks guys for catching me up on the situation. I feel like I understand it more like this is a discussion of transparency to get things out there, get out some raw feelings, but not because there was like one decision that had to be made or whatever. Yeah, I totally get, financial tensions, like having a family myself and jumping on board in this project with Giveth. There was a very like small hole of like financial opportunity, so small it wasn't even really worth kind of considering. I think when one way or another, we're all donors, we're all angel investors, because all of us, if we're not spending money, we're spending time that could be spent making money. For myself, I won't say the exact number, but it's definitely way over $10,000 that I've spent, to Giveth, completely from like, yeah, I want Giveth things to move forward, and yeah, and and I'm sure it's the same for like lots of other people. If it wasn't money, it was time or both or whatever like that. And I think that when you're looking 6 months into the future and you're like, whoa, how am I going to make money? Where am I going to be? Where's my career going? You can easily put yourself like in a powerless position. And I think that, yeah, we're in an awkward space in Giveth to empower people with where their career is going to be in 6 months. As Giveth organization, we're not really in a good position to help people out with that. We're not in a great position to be like, hey, in 12 months from now, you're going to be a rising star, or your career is going to go this way or that way. And but it's not that we utterly suck at that. It's like, yeah, this is a new this blockchain is new. Being involved with Giveth brings opportunities on the side. There's lots of growth potential. People have already used Giveth to get into like, different things, whether it be security audits or who knows what. It's a great launching platform for something, but it doesn't provide, it's never going to provide, at least not time in the near future, like this, sweet mom, I'm set for this year and I'm set for next year. Sweet dad, sweet honey, I got it covered. I got the kids covered for 2020 or whatever. And so to Griff, I just would say like, yeah, we got to be sensitive to people. Everyone's in different situations with their power and their fear about like where they're going to be. And sometimes it's like, yeah, if some people do want to see behind the curtain because they're afraid, maybe in some ways that they don't understand themselves about where their money is going to be in 3 months, it's like, yeah, I think we got to be sensitive to that. But at the same time, we need everyone to like, trust, and we have to be honest with ourselves and acknowledge that it's like, yeah, Giveth is not a money maker place. We haven't really even gotten to revenue and how we could kind of get more revenue. A lot of that's kind of happened after the DApp is there too, or whatever. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for sharing me your feelings. I'm there with you. I understand. Obviously, I've done things to try to like mitigate, my own personal factors in my dedicated efforts to bring better donations to the world through Giveth. And I guess that's all I wanted to say. I guess that's just getting stuff off my chest for you guys. So I will pass it on to, see, I've never passed it to Kai. Oh, Deem. Remember, pass it to Deem. Deem, it's all yours.
Yeah, I agree with us. And also, I don't have any strong opinions other than that. I'll give it to Kai.
You yaysayer, I totally agree with Deem and have no further comments. Which is really true because I did not hear all of what Griff was saying. Yeah, I just can say from my own experience, I've been buying flights, buying equipment, buying taxis, buying this and that. I invoiced most of the flights. I mean, yeah, pretty much like 99%. I do not invoice all of the little stuff. I do not invoice Social Security. I do not invoice whatever. I mean, why? Why would I? Yeah, so this makes no sense. So I'll give it to Yaler.
Yeah, thank you, Oz. That was really awesome. I think that's a really good underlying point. But responding to what Griff said, I don't really have any things. I mean, I actually don't understand the point of this point. Like, it would be great to use the DApp for everything we want to use the DApp for, right? But like, it's just not working right now. Like, it's not functioning. But like, hoping what the DApp's going to be. Yeah, I guess I don't understand the point of this actual bullet point. So just skip me. I choose anyone else? Lindsay?
Yeah, I think that this is a little bit of a discussion around how each circle will deal with a lot of these expenses, and that going off Wojtek's point that the circles do need to make their own decisions. And I don't agree with Chris's point that it needs to be fair. This organizational model is not about fair. It's about efficiency and about being autonomous through the circles. So fair is rarely discussed, like amongst yourselves and your circle. That should be decided where the money is spent. And that, yeah, the DApp should be working. We're all having kind of that same conversation. So, yeah, apparently people just need clarity on what is expensed, what isn't, who makes that decision. So maybe if that is being cleared up through here, that would help. And I'll pass it to, did everybody go? I think I'm the last.
Griff?
So the point of this point is basically that there are a lot that, like, there is this there's inability to make expenses that might, or make milestones that might not actually be fulfilled. The decision, we are organized in a way where we are expecting a DApp to exist that doesn't. And so the decision-making process isn't a group decision-making process for if things want to get funded. It really is a clear delineation of who has which funds in their control and like what expenses should be covered. Like, Chris should be able to put out every expense that he wants, whether or not it is officially supposed to be covered or not. Like, you should be able to propose a milestone to any campaign, or create a campaign and propose a milestone for anything that you want. And this is something that we have been mitigating. And like Wojtek says, there is like an expense claiming document that we went through, and we like debated what expenses should be claimed and which and how. But like you know, it's a little scary to do that when we don't have a way to raise funds directly for those expenses, and there's no one that can be accountable for them. And that's going to happen in 2 weeks or 2 weeks, you know, as things tend to be. And so it's like trying to create a process around this. Like, we've been mitigating and mitigating and mitigating, and the governance campaign has been mitigating the fact that we're trying to model how we're going to use the DApp, even though we don't have the DApp. It's really difficult, and it sucks. But that's the point. That was the point of this point, is like, okay, like, these are the things that aren't getting done the way we would prefer them because we don't have the DApp. But once we do, then these things should all be on the DApp, and people can use the DApp to decide whether or not funds should be spent towards this. And circle leads have a clear delineation of what they can use their funds for, or I'm sorry, like, which is anything, basically, that is proposed their campaign. And they can, right now, they can reject proposals that are made to their campaign, right? So that's kind of how we're using it now. But then there's like this thing where it's like, oh, well, there's scarcity. So we can't propose things that we want to put in there because we can't raise extra donations for them. Anyway, I just wanted to clarify the point of this. Is there anyone else who needs to go? No? Lorelai, is it cool if I just introduce myself?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so dealing with the power imbalance. So here we are trying to actually do something, right? We're trying to create decentralized autonomous communities, decentralized altruistic communities. And we are, you know, we are not in a place where we can, because we don't have the tools that we want to use. There are lots of options that we could do. I could, and I'm willing to do them because I want this to work. I want us to experiment. This is the whole point, right? I'm down to throw shit tons of money into learning about how to do DAOs. That's basically like how I'm, you know, what I want to do with this money that I don't feel I even deserve. So I really think that we can have an opportunity to create something to solve this problem in the long term and in the short term, right? We could create an Aragon DAO and start practicing Aragon DAOs on mainnet. I'm pretty sure it works. If not, we can do Rinkeby and we can play with that. I actually really like Satya's idea, and I want to throw that out there. And you know, you can react to this, or you can just throw out your own ideas. I really don't want this to be like, oh, let's debate whether this is not a good idea. I really just want to like hear ideas too. But like Satya really wants everyone to be practicing with delegations on the DApp and having. I really also think that unicorn basic income is in some ways too high and in some ways too low, right? Like I feel like it should be lowered, and then we have some kind of clear extra way that people can make money where it's not like where either it's a reward DAO or something. And Satya's idea was that we give everyone 1 ether or some amount that can be delegated to other people's milestones. So people make milestones for things they want to do, or maybe things that they already do. Like Kai does web administration, right? And he's the admin for all of our websites, and he doesn't get any validation for how important that is. You know, if you can make a milestone for a certain amount that people could delegate to, and everyone has this ether that they can, like, they get their unicorn basic income, maybe we'll say that's 1 Ether, and then they get an equal amount to actually send to other projects inside or outside of Giveth. The only rule is they can't delegate to themselves, right? And so that we technically are lowering everyone's basic income, but then we're giving money to each other to give to each other, right? And so it's, I don't know, it would be an interesting experiment, if nothing else. It's not guaranteed to succeed, but I really like that idea, and it would allow us, it would basically incentivize people to make good milestones. It would incentivize people to put milestones out there that they want to get funding for, but, you know, and a lot of milestones, but not like maybe they don't get funding. And maybe every week we would have, or we'd have a chat room, or we'd have some kind of mandatory, like, we would thing where we say, hey, like, did you got to put your Ether around somewhere, or you get less next week to donate to, or some kind of incentive model to make people put in the work to actually donate. This is just an idea that I'm kicking around, but I think it'd be cool, and I think it would also help people feel like they have some power over how funds are spent in Giveth, because it's like forcing them to actually decide which things should be funded. And it would also bring the milestones, the template that we use right now with the like reviewer and all that stuff, to be used the way they're supposed to be used, which is in the future tense. So like someone would say, hey, I want to do this project, and if their milestone doesn't get funded, well, then they didn't already do it, so it doesn't matter, right? But if it does get funded, then they have to do it to get the money. So yeah, I feel like that would deal with the power imbalance. I'm sure there's other things that we can do to deal with the economic power imbalance. But of course, there is a reality in this world. There is a power imbalance, and some people have more money than others. And, you know, the only thing we can do is mitigate it. We can't fix it. Okay, so that's my piece on this. How about Lynn's?
Yeah, I think this seems like the time to start experimenting with this. I think you made some good points, but this is getting awfully specific. If that's where we're going with this meeting, of exactly how people would feel best about moving forward, like we are a DAO and creating DACs on there. So I don't know that I have much to throw into the pot right now on this part of it. So I'm going to move on and let everyone else discuss. Let's go to Kai.
So I'm always for these kinds of experiments. I think they're nice. I'm not so sure if the idea is completely fleshed out. I know Sachir's proposal. Probably like most of our proposals, a bit more work before it can be passed, but it's a nice idea. There is a power imbalance I see by creating this budget quota, like I mentioned. I've written a short proposal about it and showed it to some people. Maybe I will publish it. Depends on the interest. There doesn't seem to be too much interest in my idea, but my idea is to just put away this budget key that we have and instead have like more transparency about all those things we talked about. We could start with, we have those circle leads. They could start holding a budget talk once a month. I mean, there's the reward DAO anyway, to be considered, that serves as kind of an anchor of the month to talk about funds and money. And this could be a discussion event for the circles and interested people about the spending of last month and about the expected spendings of next month. But I think we should in general trust each other circle's decisions. And I really feel that the main imbalance comes from this one quota that gives like this 48, 19, 17, or whatever, 16 is I think the key. Because it just allocates funds in a way that's very static and not really, I think, helpful for what we're doing. It would be better to get real accountability by more discussion, I think. In the end, it is transparent because there is a milestone, but there needs to be one event where we talk about the things to come, so before the fact. So we have something for after the fact, the milestone. And I give it to Chris.
Yeah, I also really like Satya's ID. We talked about it in Cardona, and maybe it's very similar to the unicorn points actually that we proposed, but the benefit is that we actually use the dApp. So I think it makes sense to go for that. The more we use the dApp, the better. I also agree very much with Kai's ID to take away a bit of power imbalance, which we will see more and more in that sense that if we use the key and if all the funds that we get go through this key, then indeed the dApp will amass a big amount of money. So I actually like the idea that Kai just mentioned. Like, yeah, we have the reward DAO where we vote, where we discuss like how the funds have been used, and then we can say if we have a budget discussion with the circle leads, like, okay, this month this is how the money has been spent, and so we need more funds for this or that, and it comes out of the DAC. I think that would make a whole lot of sense. And yeah, because it's. Satya made the remark also in the Lumio a few times about accountability of the circle leads for budget. I still wanted to make that remark that because Gov is running out of budget, so is comms, because indeed I'm behind on milestones. I'm making them actually right now. But I was fully aware of that, but also knowing that more funds are coming in. And talking about this accountability for budget, any spendings that have been done for comms, and I think it's happening the same way in the other circles, was discussed with the people in the meeting every time. So there were no unexpected spendings there. So I think we're all being very accountable. So I think it's something that Kai mentioned as well. I think there needs to be a little bit of trust. I think that would be a very good thing. Yeler, you mentioned it also in the nice text you wrote. There needs to be trust. There needs to be respect. And I think that will help us a long way. In the Lumio, I saw quite some things that didn't show a lot of respect or trust to me, which saddens me a bit. But yeah, so these things could help by just trusting each other and communicating on, okay, these are the actual needs, and now we can talk about budget with the people who actually take the responsibility, want to take the responsibility. Boom, 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 and I give it to Yeler.
I'm just really happy we're having this conversation because I actually think that this is a much more productive way to talk about how we should allocate funds and stuff like this, is having an open discussion and keeping it open for people to bring ideas to the table. I like all the ideas you guys have talked about, and I would be happy to like help flesh them out and see like how they would actually work. I think it's really valuable just to not be afraid of having conversation around budget or experimentations. Like, this is what Gov is all about, right? Experimentations and decentralized governance. And I think like giving people the power and saying, hey, like, see where your ETH, put your ETH where your trust is, right? So you're like, oh, I believe that what you're doing is valuable. I'm going to support it. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Obviously, lots of questions about how it would be implemented. But yeah, I'm happy to hear some other people expressing kind of feelings around this. And I think it's probably the start of a longer conversation that will produce really fruitful results. Let's see, anyone else? Oz?
Cool. Yeah, I think that I really like, the whole point of experimentation. I agree. Let's experiment more. It does seem like the thing about every experiment is that you don't know what's going to happen. Oftentimes there's downsides to it. That's the cost of research and development. I would like to suggest something else that I'm worried will cause more waves than I mean it to. I'm only suggesting this for the beneficial side, not for the downside. And so on that side, so if anyone, as I say this, anyone hears the downside, I don't want any of that. All I want is positives. Maybe it's not possible, and maybe this is a terrible idea, but I wonder if like concrete, I hate the word deadlines, but like a concrete goal. Like, so we have these leadership circles, right? And I love that because it separates the concerns. But then one thing that bored me in the beginning of the leadership circles is like, okay, well, like, how long do we try this? It's like, we're going to try these 4 circles, or more importantly, let's use social coding. That's a circle I'm a part of, and Quasi is not here, so he can't defend himself. So it's like, okay, Quasi, you're the circle lead of the social coding circle. For how long? Like, what exactly is your goal? What are you going to do with that percentage of money? I know you had a plan at the beginning, but we're all just human, you know, and there's this thing of momentum, you know, that happens with groups and stuff. It's like there's momentum at the beginning and then it tapers off or it comes back. It's like, I don't have the answers to that, but to me, it's like if Quasia, if we had been like, hey, Quasia, you're the circle lead for 4 months. You have this much budget, like, go make it happen. You know, you're completely empowered. We trust you. Ask us for help, you know, give us everything you need to give. But essentially, this is your time and money to like make something happen, right? I wonder if that would have focused it. And then on the other side, the benefit is that, like, if let's say Quasia is doing something I don't really agree with at all, like it's just not going my personal direction. If I were in charge, I hope I wouldn't feel quite as powerless, because I'd be like, hey, my job is to give Quasia these 4 months, do what I can. Yes, I don't agree with any of this stuff personally, but in 4 months, it's up for, it's going to go to the next person, you know, maybe I'm in line since I'm part of the social coding thing, or somebody else is in line, but maybe it would make it seem so hopeless. It's like Griff seems like maybe he's the king of the mountain a little bit because he's the lead of this governance thing. I don't know, maybe somebody else wants to be the lead of the governance thing and they deserve a chance, or they could learn lessons, or that sort of a thing. And so I guess I'm wondering if some sort of like a, you know, rotation or some sort of like, for me, it's like when I was put in charge of the DAP team, it's like I had one goal, which was that November launch. And so it was very concrete. And then on top of that, I got blessed with the best team ever. RJ and Satya did all the work. And so it was like, oh, great, we hit the goal, you know, great. And I was able to sort of like let it go and let other people step up to take it to the next thing. So yeah, I guess that's kind of my mini proposal. My pre-proposal is like, is there a positive, encouraging way that doesn't disempower anyone or disenfranchise anyone to kind of like rotate the opportunity and tie it to specific goals with specific dates? And that's it for me. Let me pass it to Adam.
Who joined 1 second ago.
Oh, sorry.
I'm so sorry. I just tuned in, so I probably not.
Yeah, what's your reaction?
Sorry, Adam. I made a mistake with you. It's on to Wojtek.
Okay.
Thanks, Oz. Wow, this is really difficult to react after you two guys. But I think you are right. Like, experimenting with money distribution and with basically governance in general is something that I would expect from the governance circle. And they should have the experience with that, and they should do the experiments, and yeah, be transparent about that as well, right? And because that's the modeling of the DAC. I have to say I disagree with the idea of like redistributing the budgets, because in general, not even now, but in future, because when it's in the DAP, people will actually really fund things that they see value in. And right now, the reasons why we have separate budgets is there are reasons, and we talked about those. And but I do feel the tension that it hasn't really. The budgets don't really correspond to what has been done, right? Or the needs maybe of the organization. I really like the idea of circulating circle leads, but it sounds a little bit to me like we're moving even more towards this government part, where we now start electing people to represent the circles. But it's very, very interesting experiment. And And in general, I think that the biggest picture that we should be solving right now is what actually brings value and what needs to be done. That's something that is missing to me in the whole organization, that there's no clear overview what actually needs to be done and what are the steps to do it. I think, who didn't go? Lorelei didn't go?
Yeah. Griff, can I do my volume there?
Yeah.
So yeah, I like hearing all these ideas, especially to me, these proposals of having like a regular meeting to discuss budget. And I think Lindsay was also talking about regular discussion around roles, especially circle leads. I think that would be really cool. And especially for those of us who are newer to Giveth, I do sense, like, in myself, like, wasting time, sometimes wasting wider circle time by getting myself up to speed or just coming into an issue without proper backstory. So I think having more opportunities to discuss that, I could even see it being cool having like a new to Giveth fireside chat. Like, if you want to start being a part of governance process, like, come to this meeting that happens once a month or whatever, and there will be someone there who's been a part of Giveth a little longer and who can answer questions and tell the story of how we came to be where we are now. And I feel like that would, yeah, just having those conversations more outside of our decision-making meetings would help our efficiency, which then I think just makes people feel more empowered too, and we're not like questioning power that really could be answered offline. And I think Satya's idea is really interesting. I'm excited about this space as being a place to try out somewhat radical Gov experiments. And yeah, I'd like to hear more on that proposal and any other experiments like that. And I'm gonna pass this to Lindsay.
I already went. Is anybody else waiting to go on this?
Yeah, I can go. So I agree with us that social coding has stagnated a bit. And we can also see that there's a lot of funds in the social coding right now because they haven't really been used, I think. It seems like the reward DAO has been used for that, for funding, for funding the social coding projects. And yeah, that's the input from me. Anyone else?
Did anyone else want to go? I'm going to give it a 3, 2, 1. And I think from here we can move to a checkout of this 2-hour meeting. Kai, do you want to check out first?
Yeah, it was an interesting meeting. I think, yeah, I hope we alleviated some of the tension, but I think we're still far away of a solution. But saying again, we should have the trust that we can find part of the solution in our realized application very soon. So thank you all for your time, and I hope to have a discussion like this anytime something arises, and don't hold back. I give it to Oz.
Yeah, thanks, guys. If anything, I'm just very encouraged by all you wonderful people, and it's like even when we conflict, it's still actually kind of beautiful. It's not even that hardcore. It's like we're more afraid of conflict than we are even conflicting with each other. But I think it works. It's nice. But yeah, definitely. I hope others are encouraged to share their frustrations. Thanks, Yaler, for assuming being the power behind this, putting this together so people could vent their feelings. And yeah, let's move it on to Adam for real. It's all you, bro.
Hey guys, yeah. I do wish I had heard the full dialogue. But based on sort of bits and pieces that I've heard in the past, I think it is great that we're getting together and discussing these issues because, as I've kind of said at other meetings, I think it's, really important to formalize the process and, in the name of transparency, be very transparent about what we do because it's a model for other people who are eventually going to be using this platform. Let's see, who has not checked out yet? Is Griff?
Yeah. I think this is really encouraging. I guess I still just hope that we can do a lot of the governance experiments have been put on hold basically until we can use the DApp and use that as our foundation experiments. So I really hope that we can just try to hold on for the next 3-4 weeks. And if things really, if all of a sudden we feel like the DApp, right now we're on the release version, the DApp is there, we're using it. I just really hope that we can delay any kind of big moves or any rocking the boat until the DApp comes out. And then we can start experimenting with it and playing with it, because right now with the Circle leads having complete unilateral control of budget, that's like what will happen when the DApp comes out. And all the things are kind of in place waiting for the DApp to come out, and we're so close. So if we can just hold through this storm for a few more weeks and trust. And if you want me to put money, Ether, in a smart contract somewhere, I can. But trust that I will back any debts the Gov Circle has. Then we can start the show for real and start doing lots of crazy experiments. But thank you guys. I think this was a really good, at least for me, it felt really good to just have this air in this conversation. So thank you guys for showing up. How about Yaler?
Yeah, I think the really important point here is for people who are new, like myself, to really understand how we got to this point and all of the conversations that have been had. I wasn't a part of the previous budget conversation, so I have no idea how the split came, right? And I have no idea how funds are allocated. And just learning and looking at what's done now, there's so many holes where I am looking to say, who's determining if this makes sense? Does it make sense? Is there a review process? And I guess I feel what historically has made sense is to ask people what their goal is, with their circle, or at least to do it in a process where you're just saying, hey, does this make sense to you? And is this something that you would support? That's my goal, is to always be able to ask right questions so that I can make the right decisions moving forward. And there was a lot of holes in what was happening and the way things are going. And I just didn't understand. So I am essentially just blocking things to understand them. And I do not want to poke people and say it's not about pointing fingers. It's not about not trusting or vilifying people or saying that anyone's dishonest, because that is not where it stems from. So when those words are used, it really feels hurtful. And I get out of here. Everything. Stop. I'm making an important point. it feels hurtful, and I want to kill Dapline. And I just want to express that, like, I do trust, and I do want people to be feel empowered to make the right decisions for themselves. But with that, I have to have the knowledge of what's happening. And I think everyone needs to have the knowledge of what's happening and why, so that we can understand what the mission is, what the goal is, and the direction we're going, and why we're like running into problems and how we can solve them together. So the longest checkout ever, but thank you all for being here. I choose Linz.
Hi guys. Yeah, I mean, we've discussed a lot. Now we need to put it into action. There's definitely a reason why hierarchical organizations exist, because one person needs the knowledge, one person can make the decision. So it's not easy what we're doing to take this on as a group, and new people coming in and out. And so now I think, at least the core team / circle leads, or whoever is really involved at this point, needs to continue the conversation and be prepared for the DAP to come out to transition into our next phase. So let's keep it going and work together. And on to, we also have Wojtek.
Thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, I also thank you very much for this call that brings a lot of transparency. I think we can continue in that and move forward. I'm a little bit sad that it was only about money, because I think there's a lot of other things we should talk about. But it's the DAP team always talks about money, so it's fine. And I just want to say one thing. A social experiment, and I don't mean it badly, but I don't actually understand why the governance needs to be put on hold if there's a tool that doesn't work, because for me, that actually creates the interesting part. When you have something that is not working, you should find a way how to go about it so that it works and optimize it. And I think that's something that we're going to discover even when the DAP is out, because not all the things will be just as we imagine it. And people will not behave as we imagine them to behave. So it will be interesting. But in general, last thought, I want to see us tackling, in general, the transparency, the accountability, and the decentralization that we vowed for. We haven't been doing a great job in that, in my opinion, as individuals and as an organization. And the idea of the DAP is to do a goal-driven approach. So that's also something that we should focus on. And a documenting of what we are actually doing and why. And I'm passing it to Deem.
Yeah, good meeting, and I agree with everyone else. I was more here to observe how this was going, but I'm glad that at least it brought me more clarity, and yeah, I think it's good that this happened, and I give it to Kai.
I went already. Is there anybody left? Chris?
Yes. Yeah, so thanks everyone for a very nice meeting. I think indeed, yeah, we talked mostly about money as Wojtek said, because Griff kind of set the agenda of the things he wanted to talk about. But that's okay, because I think most of the points were touched upon anyways in the call about some other things that people wanted to voice. So it's really good, and I hope this helped to. I know it helped to bring some more transparency to some important points. I just copied here the two things that Yehler wrote at the beginning of his letter that he posted in all the channels, and so that he saw the contrast between one of decentralized carefree idealism and another of logic, reason, and rational action. I don't know if it came across for you, Yehler, or for other people as well, that there is rationality on both sides, and that there is not such a big divide between, on the one side idealistic hippies, and on the other side very hard business people who just want like these things. I think we're actually all of us very like-minded. There is sometimes just a little bit of miscommunication because of different characters, backgrounds, all sorts of things. But yeah, transparency, I think almost all of us repeated it. We're about transparency and we're about accountability. So accountability, yes, we need to be accountable. Our milestone system helps for that. I think it also helps to always hold all of us accountable. So also me as a communications lead, if I'm doing something wrong, please tell me directly, communicate. It's really helpful. And so, but just talk to each other. Let's all talk to each other as much as possible and directly in open channels. That helps the most. And I would say, like, just don't bottle it up, even, and use the channel that works for you. If you're a more introverted person, you can write it down. You can do it in whatever way you want. But it would be, I think there needs to be more transparency, especially in that way. Like, talk to each other. That's a very important point of transparency. Then there is no like between each other like building up of tension that maybe is not a tension at all if you just talk about it. And and I think that's the most important thing that I wanted to say. I just wanted to say that I really trust all of you. I think all of us come from quite professional backgrounds and have a lot of things that we can contribute. I hear from almost everyone all the time that they're not able to like give everything that they have to give to Giveth, and I hope one day we'll arrive at that point. But conversations like these will help to get there. Whoops, long checkout, and I give it to Lorelai.
Yeah. I really appreciated this meeting, and especially I noticed that like multiple people stepped up to take notes. I'm not even sure who all it was besides Griff and Yaler, but I really appreciated that. I've asked for that help before and not gotten it, so it was really nice this time. Thank you to whoever participated there. And I'm excited to eat some food after this long meeting, and I'm just gonna pass this to
there's nobody left. Everybody has gone, Lorelai.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll get these notes out onto the wiki and continue it from there. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Is that a blue book deck?